The massive alien ship appeared above Earth like a dark cloud blocking the sun. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built, longer than 3 football stadiums placed end to end. The ship's hull was black metal that seemed to eat light, and strange symbols glowed along its sides like angry red eyes. Behind it came more ships, hundreds of them, all different shapes and sizes but all carrying the same message of death. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign's Will. His reptilian skin was dark green and covered in scales that caught the light from the control panels. His yellow eyes looked down at the small blue planet below with the same interest a child might show when looking at an ant hill. To him, Earth was just another world that would soon bow to the galactic hegemony. Vextar pressed a button on his command chair and spoke into the communication system. His voice would be heard on every radio, television, and computer on Earth. "People of the third planet," he said, his words cold and sharp like broken glass. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Draxion Empire, speaking for the galactic hegemony. Your world has been chosen to join our great union of civilized species." On Earth, people stopped what they were doing and listened. In offices and homes, in cars and schools. Everyone heard the alien voice speaking perfect English. The voice continued. "You have 3 days to surrender completely to hegemony rule. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your military will be disbanded. Your leaders will step down and accept hegemony governors. If you refuse, your planet will be destroyed completely." To prove his point, Vextar activated a holographic display that appeared in the sky above every major city on Earth. The images showed planets turned to glass, their surfaces melted and smooth. They showed cities reduced to ash and entire continents burned black. "These worlds chose to resist," Vextar explained. "They no longer exist. Choose wisely." President Hyun-woo Kim sat in the emergency bunker beneath the White House, watching the alien broadcast with the other world leaders who had gathered via secure video link. His face was calm, but his hands were shaking slightly. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth, and they all looked terrified. The aliens had 500 warships. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of 47 ships, most of them research vessels and patrol craft. "Sir," said General Martinez from the Pentagon, "our analysis shows their smallest ship could destroy our largest battleship. We're looking at technology that's hundreds of years ahead of ours. Resistance would be suicide." Defense Minister Bo-Ra. Park sat next to President Kim, her fingers drumming silently on the table. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been Earth's defense minister for 10 years, and in that time she had overseen the largest military buildup in human history. But even she seemed overwhelmed by what they faced. "What about our allies?" asked the Prime Minister of Japan through the video link. "Can the European Federation help? The African Union?" President Kim shook his head. "Every nation on Earth combined couldn't stop this fleet. We're not talking about fighting other humans anymore. These aliens have weapons we can't even understand." Bo-Ra leaned closer to President Kim and whispered something in his ear. He nodded slightly and looked back at the assembled leaders. "We need time to discuss our options," he said. "I suggest we reconvene in 12 hours. As the video conference ended, President Kim and Bo-Ra were left alone in the bunker. The room was quiet, except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of emergency sirens from the city above. President Kim turned to his defense minister with a look she had seen many times before. "Is it time?" he asked quietly. Bo-Ra nodded. "Project Midnight has been waiting for this day for 30 years. Our people are ready." She pulled out a special communication device that looked like a normal tablet, but was actually connected to a network that officially did not exist. Her fingers moved across the screen, entering codes that had been memorized by only a dozen people on Earth. When she finished, a single message appeared on the screen. "Protocol Midnight activated. Far above them, Admiral Minho Choi received the message on his own secret device while standing on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Courage. He was commanding Earth's official fleet, the ships that everyone knew about. These were good ships with brave crews, but they were also decoys. Their real purpose was to make the aliens think they knew everything about human military power. Minho looked out at the alien fleet surrounding Earth and smiled for the first time in days. The aliens thought they were looking at desperate defenders, preparing for a hopeless last stand. They had no idea what was really happening. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Da-Yun Song felt her ship shake slightly as the fusion reactors came online. She had been floating in space for 3 years, her ship powered down and cold, waiting for this moment. Around her, hundreds of other ships were doing the same thing. They had been hiding in the darkness between worlds, patient as hunters waiting for their prey. Da-Un's ship was called the Ghost of Proxima, and it was painted black to absorb light and radar. It carried weapons that did not appear in any official Earth military catalog and technology that had been developed in secret facilities hidden around the solar system. Most importantly, it had been designed for one specific purpose: killing. Things much bigger than itself. As her crew awakened from their rotating sleep cycles, Da-Un checked her instruments. The stealth systems were working perfectly. To any observer, this section of space appeared completely empty. But she could see the other ships in her squadron, their positions marked on her tactical display. Each ship was a shadow in the darkness, invisible and deadly. On the hidden moon base that officially did not exist, Chief Engineer Jae-Sung Lee watched the final preparations of humanity's greatest secret. The Luna shipyards had been built in absolute secrecy on the far side of the HFY moon using materials mined from asteroids by automated robots. For 30 years, the best engineers on Earth had worked here, building ships that the rest of humanity had never seen. The flagship of this secret fleet was a monster called Retribution's Edge. It was 2 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that pushed the limits of human engineering. Jae-Sung had spent 15 years of his life building this ship, and now it was finally ready for its first and possibly last battle. Back on Earth, Director Soo-Jin Han sat in a control room buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. She was watching displays that showed the positions of ships scattered throughout the solar system. For 30 years, she had overseen Project Midnight, the most classified program in human history. It had begun when the first alien probe was shot down over the Pacific in 1995, and humanity had learned they were not alone in the universe. Since then, 14 more alien scouts had been captured or destroyed. Each one had been studied, reverse-engineered, and used to prepare for this day. The aliens thought they were making first contact with a primitive species. They had no idea that humanity had been watching them and learning from them for decades. Soo-Jin activated another communication channel and spoke to teams around the world. Phase 1 is complete. All assets are moving to final positions. Time to deployment, 68 hours. Above Earth, Admiral Vextar was confident that the humans would surrender soon. His ships maintained their threatening positions, and his communications officers monitored Earth's military channels. They heard exactly what they expected: panic, confusion, and the desperate preparations of a species facing extinction. The Admiral did not know that every signal his fleet received had been carefully planned. He did not know about the ships moving in the darkness beyond his sensors. Most importantly, he did not know that the species he was threatening had spent its entire existence learning how to kill things bigger and stronger than itself. The countdown had begun, but not the one the aliens expected. Admiral Vextar walked through the corridors of his flagship, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. Through the windows, he could see Earth spinning slowly below, its blue oceans and white clouds looking peaceful and helpless. His Fleet of 500 ships surrounded the planet like a net made of steel and death. In 48 hours, this world would either surrender or burn. The alien commander entered his tactical center where dozens of officers from different species worked at control stations. Some had scales like him, others had fur or smooth skin, or features that looked almost human. They all served the Galactic Hegemony, the union of civilized worlds that had brought order to this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. "Status report," Vextar commanded. Lieutenant Kethra, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms, looked up from her sensors. "The human fleet maintains defensive positions around their homeworld. No aggressive movements detected. Their ships appear to be older models with limited weapons and defensive capabilities." Vextar nodded with satisfaction. His intelligence reports had been correct. The humans had only 47 ships, and most of them were barely worthy of being called warships. It would be like crushing insects with a hammer. "Any attempts at communication with other species?" the Admiral asked. "None detected, sir. Earth appears to be completely isolated. Our long-range sensors show no other human colonies or outposts in nearby systems." This was also good news. Some species tried to call for help when faced with hegemony demands, though such calls were usually pointless. The hegemony controlled most of the known galaxy, and few civilizations were foolish enough to oppose them. What Vextar did not know was that his sensors were detecting exactly what they were supposed to detect. Hidden throughout his fleet were small devices that had been placed by human infiltration teams years ago. These devices fed false information into the alien sensor networks, making empty space look occupied and occupied space look empty. In the asteroid belt, Captain Da Yun Song drifted silently through the darkness aboard the Ghost of Proxima. Her ship looked like a piece of space debris, its black hull absorbing all light and its engines completely cold. She had been floating here for 3 years, waiting for this moment. Da Yun checked her chronometer, 36 hours until the alien deadline. Around her, she could see the positions of her squadron marked on her tactical display. 43 ships, all invisible to alien sensors, all armed with weapons designed specifically to kill hegemony. Vessels. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Tae-Ho Park, whispered from his station. "Captain, we're receiving movement orders from command. All squadrons are to begin final approach to designated positions." Dawn smiled. She had been born on Mars colony and trained her entire life for space warfare. Her parents had been miners, but she had dreamed of flying among the stars. Now she was about to participate in the largest space battle in human history. "Helm, bring us to quarter power," she ordered. "Navigation, plot course for intercept position Delta 7. Communications, send ready signal to command." The Ghost of Proxima began to move, its advanced engines producing almost no detectable emissions. Around the asteroid belt, hundreds of other ships were doing the same thing. They moved like sharks through dark water, silent and deadly. On Earth, Admiral Minho Choi stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Earth defense ship Courage. Through the windows, he could see the massive alien vessels hanging in space like storm clouds. His own fleet looked tiny and helpless in comparison. Minho was 53 years old and had served in Earth's military for his entire adult life. He had fought pirates in the outer colonies and explored dangerous regions of space. But this was different. This was the moment everything had been building toward. His communications officer approached with a message tablet. "Sir, President Kim is requesting another status update." Minho nodded. He needed to continue the performance a little longer. The aliens were monitoring all Earth military communications, and they needed to believe that humanity was considering surrender. "Open a channel to Earth Command," he ordered. The view screen activated, showing President Hyun-Woo Kim in the emergency bunker. The president looked tired and worried, which was not entirely an act. Even with Project Midnight, this battle would be the most dangerous thing humanity had ever attempted. "Admiral," the president said, "what is your assessment of our defensive capabilities?" Minho chose his words carefully, knowing alien ears were listening. "Sir, we have 47 operational vessels in defensive positions. Our weapons are charged and crews are ready, but we are severely outgunned. The alien fleet possesses overwhelming superiority in both numbers and technology." This was all true as far as it went. The aliens did outnumber humanity's official fleet by more than 10 to 1. What Minho did not mention was that Earth's official fleet represented less than 10% of human military strength. President Kim nodded gravely. "Continue monitoring the situation, Admiral. We will make our decision soon." The transmission ended, and Minho allowed himself a small smile. The aliens would interpret this conversation as evidence that humanity was preparing to surrender. They would never suspect that both men were following a script written 30 years ago. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, Chief Engineer Jae-Sung Lee made his final inspections of the dreadnought Retribution's edge. The massive ship filled the entire underground hangar, its hull gleaming under the work lights. At 2 kilometers long, it was the largest warship humanity had ever built. Jae-Sung had spent half his life working on this ship. Every system had been tested and retested. Every weapon had been calibrated for maximum effectiveness against known alien technologies. The ship's primary weapon was something the aliens had never seen before, a gravity lance that could bend space-time itself. "Status of all systems?" he asked his engineering team. "Fusion reactors at full standby power," reported Chief Petty Officer Yoo-Jin Lee. "All weapon systems check green. Defensive screens are ready for activation. The ship is fully operational." Jae-Sung nodded. Tomorrow, this ship would either save humanity or die trying. There would be no second chances. On Earth, Director Soo-Jin Han sat in her underground command center, watching displays that showed the positions of every human ship in the solar system. The official count was 47 vessels. The real count was 834. Soo-Jin was 62 years old and had overseen Project Midnight since its beginning. She had been a young engineer when the first alien probe was shot down in 1995. She had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, knowing it would eventually come. The project had required the cooperation of every major nation on Earth. Secret. Facilities had been built in the asteroid belt, on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and in the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. Thousands of the brightest minds in human civilization had worked in absolute secrecy, building ships and weapons that the rest of humanity never knew existed. "Director," called Major Won-Sik Kim from the tactical station. "All squadrons report. Ready status. Fleet deployment will be complete in 34 hours. Soo-Jin nodded. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The aliens thought they were negotiating with a primitive species that had barely learned to travel between planets. They had no idea they were about to face an armada that had been designed specifically to destroy them. The key to the plan was patience. Humanity had learned to think in decades rather than years. While the aliens had been conquering other worlds, humans had been studying alien technology and preparing their defense. Every captured probe had revealed new secrets. Every intercepted transmission had provided valuable intelligence. Now it was time to use that knowledge. In his ready room aboard the Sovereign's Will, Admiral Vextar reviewed intelligence reports about human capabilities. According to his analysts, Earth possessed no weapons that could seriously threaten hegemony vessels. Their fusion reactors were primitive, their defensive screens were weak, and their weapons were chemical rockets and simple energy beams. The Admiral was confident that resistance would last no more than a few hours. After that, the surviving humans would be grateful for the peace and order that hegemony rule would bring to their world. Vextar activated his personal communicator and sent a message to the Hegemony Council on the capital world of Drax Prime. Operation proceeds as planned. Human resistance is minimal. Expect full compliance within 48 hours. He had no way of knowing that his message was intercepted by human intelligence networks and analyzed within minutes of transmission. He did not know that humans had been reading hegemony communications for 20 years. Most importantly, he did not know that his own confidence was about to become his greatest weakness. The alien admiral retired to his sleeping chamber, satisfied that tomorrow would bring another easy victory for the hegemony. In the darkness of space around him, ships began to move like pieces on a vast chessboard. But the game being played was not the one he thought it was. Time was running out, but not for humanity. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge watching the countdown timer. 6 hours remained until the human deadline expired. Below them, Earth continued its slow rotation, apparently helpless under the guns of 500 alien warships. The human fleet maintained its defensive positions, making no aggressive moves that might provoke an early attack. Vextar was growing impatient. He had given these primitives 3 days to surrender, and they had spent most of that time in meaningless discussions. His tactical officers reported no signs of preparation for battle, which suggested the humans were planning to submit at the last moment. This was common behavior among inferior species. "Communications," the admiral commanded. "Open a channel to the human fleet." The main view screen activated, showing Admiral Min-Ho Choi on the bridge of his flagship. The human looked tired and defeated, exactly as Vextar had expected. "Admiral Choi," Vextar said, his reptilian voice cold and formal, "your deadline approaches. What is your government's decision?" Min-Ho appeared to hesitate, glancing at something off-screen before responding. "Admiral Vextar, our leaders are still discussing terms. We request additional time to prepare our response." Vextar's yellow eyes narrowed. "You have had 3 days. No more delays will be tolerated." To emphasize his point, the alien admiral turned to his weapons officer. "Target the orbital station designated Research Platform 7. Charge primary cannon to 20% power." The massive dreadnought's main weapon began to glow with deadly energy. Research Platform 7 was one of Earth's largest space stations, home to 15,000 civilians. Its destruction would demonstrate hegemony power and convince the humans that resistance was hopeless. "You see," Vextar said, turning back to the view screen, "this is what happens to those who test my patience." But instead of fear, Min-Ho's face showed something unexpected. The human admiral was smiling. "Admiral Vextar," Min-Ho said quietly, "before you fire that weapon, there's something you should know about patience." Before the alien could respond, Min-Ho switched to a different communication frequency. His voice suddenly carried across space to receivers that Vextar had never detected. "All stations," Min-Ho broadcast, "activate Protocol Daybreak." The effect was immediate and terrifying. Across the solar system, space itself seemed to come alive. Ships materialized out of nothingness, dropping their stealth systems and revealing their true positions. Where moments before there had been empty vacuum, now there were warships. On Vexatar's bridge, every alarm began sounding at once. His tactical officer stared at her displays in disbelief, her 4 arms moving frantically across her controls. "Sir," she stammered, "I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. Ships are appearing everywhere. The humans have over 800 vessels." Vextar's blood turned cold. 800 ships. That was more than his own fleet. But it was impossible. His intelligence reports clearly showed that Earth had only 47 warships. Captain Da-Yun Song felt her ship come fully alive as the ghost of Proxima dropped its stealth and powered up to full combat readiness. Around her, 42 other vessels in her squadron did the same. They had been floating dark and silent in the asteroid belt for 3 years, waiting for this moment. "All ships, this is Squadron Leader Song," she transmitted to her command. "Execute attack pattern Delta. Target the alien cruiser group at coordinates 77 Mark III. Her ships began moving with deadly precision. They had trained for this battle their entire careers, studying captured alien technology and learning every weakness in hegemony ship design. Each vessel in her squadron was specifically equipped to kill targets much larger than itself. Throughout the solar system, similar scenes were unfolding. Near Jupiter, Captain Giwan Yu's carrier Silent Hunter launched swarms of unmanned fighters that moved like angry wasps toward the alien fleet. Behind the moon, the massive dreadnought Retribution's Edge emerged from its hidden dock with its escort fleet. On Earth, Director Soo-Jin Han watched the deployment from her command center. After 30 years of planning, Project Midnight was finally revealing itself to the galaxy. "All squadrons report ready," announced Major Won-Sik Kim. "Fleet deployment is complete." Soo-Jin activated the main communications array and spoke directly to the alien fleet. Her voice was calm and professional, but it carried the weight of humanity's hidden strength. "Admiral Vextar," she said, "this is Director Soo-Jin Han of Earth Defense Command. Your fleet is completely surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." On the alien flagship, chaos erupted. Officers shouted reports in a dozen different languages as they tried to understand what was happening. The human fleet they had been watching was still there, but now it was joined by hundreds of other ships that had appeared from nowhere. Vextar's tactical display showed the terrible truth. Human ships surrounded his fleet in a three-dimensional formation that left no escape route. They had emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system, behind asteroids, in the shadows of moons, even from within the outer planet's ring. "Systems. How is this possible?" Vexatar demanded. "Our sensors showed nothing. Our intelligence reports indicated primitive technology." Minho's image appeared again on the main screen, but now his expression was different. The defeated look was gone, replaced by the cold confidence of a predator who had been planning this hunt for a very long time. "Your sensors showed exactly what we wanted them to show," Minho said. "Did you really think a species that survived ice ages and world wars would meet the stars unprepared?" Another voice joined the conversation, this one belonging to Defense. Minister Bora Park. She spoke from the emergency bunker on Earth, but her words reached every ship in both fleets. "Admiral Vextar, you should know that we've been watching your people for 53 years. Since your first scout ships entered our outer system, we captured 14 of them before you even knew we'd detected you." The alien admiral felt his world turning upside down. 53 years. The humans had known about the hegemony for over half a century and had said nothing. They had allowed his people to believe they were making first contact with a primitive species. "Every probe you sent, every transmission you made, every piece of technology you lost," Bora continued. "We studied it all. We learned your weaknesses, your tactics, your ship designs. We built our fleet specifically to destroy yours." Vextar looked at his tactical display again. The human ships were moving into attack formation with precision that spoke of years of training. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in the galactic database, suggesting technology that had been developed in complete secrecy. Captain Taemin Park, commanding the dreadnought Retribution's Edge, opened his own communication channel. He was the younger brother of Defense Minister Bora Park, and he had spent 15 years preparing for this battle. "Alien fleet," his voice carried across space. "You came here to make us kneel. But humanity doesn't kneel to anyone. We learned that lesson long before we reached the stars." The massive human dreadnought's primary weapon began to charge, its gravity lance creating ripples in space-time itself. The weapon had been designed using principles reverse-engineered from captured alien technology, but enhanced with human engineering that pushed the limits of what was possible. Vextar realized that his fleet was facing something unprecedented in hegemony history. These weren't desperate defenders fighting for their lives. These were hunters who had been preparing for this moment for decades. Every human ship, every weapon, every tactical formation had been designed with one purpose: killing hegemony vessels. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "the human ships are requesting our surrender." They're offering to accept asylum requests from any crew members who wish to defect. Even in this moment of crisis, Vexitar was shocked by the audacity. The humans weren't just threatening his fleet, they were trying to recruit his crews. It was psychological warfare on a level that the hegemony had never encountered. Through his ship's sensors, Vexitar could see the human vessels taking their final positions. They moved with the coordination of a pack of wolves surrounding prey. Every ship knew its role, every weapon was targeted with surgical precision. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vexitar of the Draxian Empire faced an enemy that was completely prepared for battle while he was not. The hunters had become the hunted, and he had no idea how it had happened so quickly. But Vexitar was a warrior of the hegemony, and warriors did not surrender without a fight. Even facing impossible odds, he would make the humans pay for their deception. "All ships," he commanded, his voice carrying to every vessel in his fleet. "Battle stations. We will show these primitives the true power of the galactic hegemony." The greatest space battle in human history was about to begin. The first shots of the battle erupted across three-dimensional space as Admiral Vexitar's fleet launched their desperate attack. Brilliant streams of energy lanced between the opposing forces, lighting up the darkness like deadly fireworks. The alien admiral had refused to surrender, choosing instead to fight against odds that should have been impossible to overcome. Captain Dayun Song felt her ship shudder as enemy fire passed close to the Ghost of Proxima. She gripped her command chair and watched her tactical display as the alien cruiser squadron tried to break through her defensive line. "Helm, execute evasion pattern Gamma," she ordered. "Weapons, target the lead cruiser's shield generators." Her ship moved like a dancer through the deadly space around it. The Ghost of Proxima had been designed for exactly this kind of battle, built to hunt enemies much larger than itself. Its quantum displacement drive allowed it to phase through conventional energy shields, a technology that humanity had developed by studying captured alien equipment. The human destroyer appeared to vanish for a moment, then reappeared inside the alien cruiser's defensive perimeter. Daeun's weapons officer, Lieutenant Hyojin Yu, fired a concentrated burst from their primary cannon directly into the enemy vessel's unprotected hull. "Direct hit," Hyojin reported. "Enemy shields are down. Hull breach detected." The alien cruiser, a massive vessel 3 times the size of Dayun's ship, began to list as atmosphere vented from its damaged sections. Its return fire was desperate and uncoordinated, the crew clearly unprepared for an enemy that could ignore their strongest defenses. Throughout the battle zone, similar scenes played out as the human fleet demonstrated 30 years of careful preparation. Each ship had been designed with specific alien weaknesses in mind. Every weapon system had been tested against captured hegemony technology. Most importantly, every crew member had trained their entire career for this single battle. Captain Giwan Yu commanded the stealth carrier Silent Hunter from behind the cover of Luna's far side. His ship was launching wave after wave of unmanned fighters that moved through space like schools of metal fish. These weren't ordinary drone craft. They were equipped with artificial intelligence systems that could learn and adapt in real time. "Launch. Squadron 7, Giwan ordered. "Target the alien battleship group advancing on Earth's orbital defenses." 200 small fighters streamed from his carrier's launch bays. Each one was no bigger than an old Earth fighter plane, but they carried weapons that could punch through battleship armor. More importantly, they could communicate with each other and share tactical information faster than any biological crew could react. The alien battleship Inexorable Conquest found itself surrounded by the swarming fighters. Its point defense systems fired frantically, destroying dozens of the small craft, but for every fighter that died, 2 more seemed to take its place. The artificial intelligence controlling the swarm learned from each loss, adjusting tactics and finding new ways to penetrate the alien defenses. Admiral Vexitar watched from his bridge as his carefully organized fleet began to fall apart. The humans weren't fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. They weren't trying to match his ship's gun for gun or prove their superiority through raw firepower. Instead, they fought like predators, using speed and cunning to strike at his fleet's weakest points. "Tactical report," he demanded from his increasingly frantic staff. Lieutenant Kethra's four arms moved across her controls as she tried to make sense of the battle. "Sir, we've lost 17 ships in the first hour. The humans are using weapons and tactics that don't appear in any of our databases. Their ships can somehow pass through our defensive screens." Vextar's yellow eyes burned with rage and confusion. His fleet had conquered dozens of worlds, faced every known type of military technology in the galaxy. But these humans were using principles that shouldn't have been possible with their primitive science. What the alien admiral didn't understand was that human science wasn't primitive anymore. For 50 years, Earth's brightest minds had been studying alien technology in secret, learning not just how it worked, but how to defeat it. Every piece of captured equipment had revealed new possibilities, new ways to turn hegemony's strength into weakness. The massive dreadnought Retribution's Edge emerged from behind Luna like a metal mountain moving through space. Captain Taemin. Park stood on its bridge, watching as his ship's escort fleet took position around the flagship. At 2 kilometers long, the human dreadnought was larger than anything in the alien fleet. "All weapons, target the enemy command ship," Taemin ordered. "Prepare to fire the gravity lance." The ship's primary weapon began to charge, drawing power from fusion reactors that had been built using principles learned from captured alien technology, but enhanced with human engineering. The gravity lance was humanity's ultimate weapon, capable of creating focused gravitational fields that could tear apart the strongest materials. Taemin had spent his entire adult life preparing for this moment. He was Bo-Ra Park's younger brother, and like her, he had dedicated himself to defending Earth from alien invasion. The Retribution's Edge was his weapon, and today it would either save humanity or die in the attempt. "Gravity lance at full charge," reported his weapons officer. "Target locked on the alien flagship. Fire," Taemin commanded. Space itself seemed to bend as the gravity lance activated. An invisible beam of twisted space-time reached across the battle zone and struck the Sovereign's will. The alien dreadnought's shields flared and failed as the gravitational field tore at its hull like invisible hands. On the alien flagship, Admiral Vextar felt his ship shake as forces beyond his understanding attacked its very structure. Emergency alarms filled the bridge as systems failed throughout the vessel. "Damage report," he shouted over the noise. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15, his engineering officer replied. "Primary power grid is failing. The humans are using some kind of gravitational weapon." Vexatar stared at his tactical display in growing horror. His fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to know exactly how to kill hegemony ships. The humans weren't just winning. They were dominating the battle with a level of tactical superiority that suggested decades of preparation. What terrified him most was the realization that this wasn't desperation. The human fleet moved with the confidence of hunters who had been planning this exact scenario for years. Every attack was precisely calculated, every defense perfectly timed. Captain Min-jae Kim commanded the assault frigate Hammer of Justice as it led a squadron attack against an alien destroyer group. His ship was small compared to the enemy vessels, but it carried weapons that had been specifically designed to penetrate hegemony armor. "All ships form attack formation Delta," he transmitted to his squadron. "Target their engine sections. These ships can't fight if they can't maneuver." The human frigates moved in perfect coordination, their pilots trained to work together like fingers on a hand. They struck the alien destroyers from multiple angles simultaneously, overwhelming the enemy point defense systems through sheer numbers and precise timing. The battle raged for hours as the human fleet methodically destroyed or disabled one alien ship after another. The technology gap that should have favored the hegemony had been turned on its head through careful study and preparation. Human weapons pierced alien armor, human defenses absorbed alien fire, and human tactics consistently outmaneuvered alien formations. Director Soo Jin Han watched the battle from her command center deep beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean. The displays around her showed the positions of every ship in both fleets, tracking the progress of humanity's greatest gamble. "Casualty report," she requested from her staff. Major Won-Sik Kim consulted his screens before responding. "We've lost 37 ships so far. The aliens have lost over 200. Our forces are maintaining tactical superiority across all engagement zones." Soo-Jin nodded, but her expression remained grim. Even in victory, each lost ship represented hundreds of brave people who had died defending their world. These weren't numbers on a screen. They were the sons and daughters of Earth who had volunteered to face the unknown dangers of space combat. As the battle continued, it became clear that the hegemony fleet was facing something unprecedented in their 1,000-year history of conquest. They weren't fighting primitives who could be overwhelmed by superior technology. They were fighting an enemy that had studied them for decades and built an entire military force specifically designed to destroy them. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle raged for 18 hours across the solar system before the last alien guns finally fell silent. When the fighting ended, space around Earth was filled with the wreckage of what had once been the proudest fleet in the galactic hegemony. Of the 500 ships that had come to force humanity's surrender, only 63 remained intact, and most of those were heavily damaged. Admiral Vexatar sat in his command chair aboard the crippled sovereign's will, staring at displays that showed the impossible truth. His mighty fleet had been destroyed by the very primitives he had come to conquer. Worse, they had been destroyed by weapons and tactics that seemed designed specifically to kill hegemony vessels. The alien admiral's bridge was a ruin of sparking consoles and broken equipment. Half his crew was dead or wounded, and his ship's main engines were completely destroyed. Through the cracked viewports, he could see human ships moving among the wreckage, rescuing survivors and securing prisoners. A communication signal came through the damaged speakers, and Admiral Min Ho, Choi's face appeared on the main screen. The human admiral looked tired but victorious, and there was no mercy in his dark eyes. "Admiral Vextar," Min Ho said quietly, "your fleet has been defeated. I am prepared to accept your surrender." Vextar wanted to refuse, wanted to fight too. The death as a warrior of the hegemony should. But he looked around his ruined bridge and saw the faces of his surviving crew members. They had families waiting for them on distant worlds, lives that would be lost if he chose pride over wisdom. "I surrender," Vextar said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "What are your terms?" Min Ho's expression didn't change. "You and your surviving crews will be treated according to the standards of civilized warfare. Your injured will receive medical care, and your dead will be honored. But understand this: the age of hegemony expansion has ended today." Hours later, Vexatar found himself aboard the human dreadnought Retribution's Edge, escorted through corridors that hummed with power and efficiency. The ship was a monument to human engineering, every system designed for war, but built with a precision that even hegemony shipwrights would admire. He was brought to a conference room where Captain Taemin Park waited along with several other human officers. The humans had removed their helmets, showing faces that were calm and professional despite having just won the greatest victory in their species' history. "Admiral Vextar," Taemin said, gesturing to a chair, "please sit. We have much to discuss." The alien admiral sat heavily, his reptilian features showing the exhaustion of defeat. "You wish to gloat over your victory?" Taemin shook his head. "We wish to establish communication with your government. This battle was never about conquest or revenge. It was about ensuring that humanity will never again face extinction at the hands of those who consider us primitive." A new voice joined the conversation as Defense Minister Bora Park entered the room. She was a small woman compared to the alien admiral, but her presence filled the space like a cold wind. "Admiral," she said, taking a seat across from him, "your hegemony sent you here to make Earth kneel. Instead, you have learned why humanity refuses to bow to anyone." Vextar looked at the human woman with something approaching respect. "You planned this for decades. Every probe we sent, every transmission we made, you were watching and learning?" Bora nodded. "We learned about your people 53 years ago when we shot down your first scout ship. Since then, we have captured 14 more vessels and intercepted thousands of communications. We know your technology, your tactics, and your weaknesses. Better than you know them yourselves." The alien admiral felt a chill run down his scaled spine. "You turned our own strength against us." "We did what humans have always done," Bora replied. "We adapted. We learned. We survived. Your people made the mistake of believing that technological superiority meant automatic victory. But technology is just a tool. Victory comes from understanding how to use it." Taman activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of human and alien ships throughout the solar system. "Your surviving vessels have been offered a choice. They can return to hegemony space with our message, or they can request asylum on Earth. Many of your crews have chosen asylum." This was perhaps the most shocking revelation of all. Hegemony soldiers were abandoning their posts to join the very species they had come to conquer. Vextar realized that humanity's victory was complete in ways that went far beyond simple military defeat. "What message do you want sent to the Hegemony Council?" he asked. Bora leaned forward, her eyes hard as steel. "Tell them that Earth is no longer an isolated world waiting to be conquered. Tell them that humanity has taken its place among the stars, and we will defend ourselves against any threat. Most importantly, tell them that we know where they live." The implications were terrifying. If humanity had been watching the hegemony for 50 years, they knew the locations of major worlds, military bases, and supply routes. The species that had seemed primitive just days ago now possessed intelligence that could threaten the entire galactic order. Days later, Director Sujin Han stood in her command center watching displays that showed human ships spreading throughout the solar system. The immediate threat had been defeated, but now came the harder task of deciding what to do with humanity's new position in the galaxy. "Director," Major Wansik Kim reported, "the first expedition fleet is ready for departure. Captain Da Yun Song has volunteered to lead our initial exploration beyond the solar system." Sujin nodded. The Ghost of Proxima and her squadron would be humanity's first official representatives to the wider galaxy. They carried a simple message for any species they encountered. Earth's children had come to the stars, and they had brought their weapons with them. Captain Da Yun Song stood on her ship's bridge, looking out at the stars that had once seemed impossibly distant. Her vessel now carried hybrid human-alien technology, systems that combined the best of both civilizations. More importantly, it carried the knowledge that humanity would never again face extinction at the hands of those who underestimated them. "Navigation, set course for the Proxima Centauri system," she ordered. "Communications, prepare to transmit our credentials to any vessels we encounter." The Ghost of Proxima engaged its improved engines and leaped toward the stars, carrying humanity's message to the galaxy. Behind it, Earth continued its ancient rotation, but the world was no longer the same. The blue planet that had once seemed helpless now stood at the center of a growing sphere of human influence. Months later, the Hegemony Council received Admiral Vextar's report in stunned silence. The reptilian admiral, his career destroyed, but his life spared by human mercy, stood before the most powerful beings in the known galaxy and delivered a warning that changed everything. "They call themselves human," he told the assembled leaders of a dozen species, "and they do not kneel to anyone." The council chamber erupted in angry voices as representatives demanded explanations for how a primitive species could have defeated the mighty hegemony fleet. But Vextar's next words silenced them all. "They are not primitive," he said quietly. "They have been preparing for this war longer than some of our member species have been spacefaring. They know our weaknesses better than we do, and they have built their entire military to exploit those weaknesses." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not simply won a defensive battle, they had announced their arrival as a major galactic power. More troubling was the realization that Earth's forces were still largely unknown. The fleet that had destroyed Vextar's Armada might represent only a fraction of human military capability. In the depths of space, human ships continued their expansion from the solar system. They moved with the confidence of a species that had spent its entire existence learning how to survive against impossible odds. They had faced ice ages and asteroid impacts, plagues and wars, and they had emerged stronger from each challenge. Now they faced the galaxy with the same determination. They carried weapons designed to kill gods, and the knowledge that no threat was too great to overcome. Most importantly, they carried the understanding that survival was not a gift to be granted by others, but a right to be defended with everything they possessed. Earth's children had come to the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. The age of easy conquest was over, and in its place had come something far more dangerous, a species that refused to kneel and possessed the weapons to enforce that refusal. The humans had answered the hegemony's ultimatum with overwhelming force, and their message echoed across the galaxy like thunder. "We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We survive."